Do you think Mary is misunderstood amongst the viewers?
I think more so last season than this season. I think people are starting to understand her a lot more. I think that I think a lot of people were very put off by her marriage because it is unusual and it was something that they hadn't heard of. Um and so I think that like they almost like attached a stigma to it, you know what I'm saying? And so they didn't kind of like go in with open arms to her, and they sort of were shut down and closed off. And and she takes a minute to get your head around because she's probably the most present individual I've ever met in terms of, I mean, I know she fell asleep at reunion. That's not what I mean, you know. I mean in terms of emotionally present. You know, she says what she's feeling in the moment, and she's can be sometimes brutally honest, and it can be harsh, you know. And but and sometimes she's feeling that in the moment, but she doesn't really mean it, and then it slips out because she's feeling it, and that's just who she is and how she says it. And you know, you have to have a little bit of thick skin. You have to understand that that's like how she's feeling at that moment. It doesn't mean that that's how she really feels about you. And so I think it takes people a minute to understand her and who she is.
I would agree with that. I feel like I understand her more just from watching this season. Recently, we had this scene, where you were at Lisa's event and Cam came up to you and, said he was in Mary's church and now he's not and he suffered harm and beware. You seemed really upset from that scene, Meredith.
I was extremely shaken up from that scene. I just like it was a lot for me. You know, I didn't understand what he was trying to say exactly, but I felt like I kind of knew that it was just not real positive. And it was just very, very uncomfortable and rattling because I had never met him before. um you know, and I didn't really understand like what was the message, you know. And then I mean it's terribly sad that he, you know, that he passed shortly, you know, thereafter, a few months later. And that's just like kind of crazy. And then as you learn about some of that stuff, you know, it's not my story to tell, but he did have a medical condition that could potentially impair his perception of reality. And I'm not saying it was, I can't speak for him. I can't say that it was, but I also can't say that it wasn't, knowing about that condition. And so, you know, as I start to digest everything and think it through, I'm like, I got to drop this. Like, these are cryptic comments from someone who potentially may not be a very reliable source, not because he's a bad person, but because he had a condition. And and so, you know, it was really very difficult for me to hear that stuff, especially just like from someone I just met at Lisa's kids party. And it was just a lot. It was so unexpected. And yeah, I was
I mean,
blindsided.
it seemed like a lot, and it seemed like you were blindsided. What about, and I'm not coming for Mary, like all this stuff that's always out there that her uncle Ernest says, she's running a cult, like I'm sure you've seen this stuff all over online.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. I'm sure there's a lot more than what I've seen because, you know, I only pay so much attention, I'll be honest, because there is so much stuff being put out there by everybody. And, you know, so some of it I see, some of it I don't. I have seen some of it. Um, you know, I don't know what to say to any of it. I really don't. I mean, you'll see um how Mary responds to this stuff at some point in the future. And at some level, you know, I mean, look, people call, and I'm not going to pick and choose, but people call a lot of religious organizations cults. And I can't answer you. You know, if people are there against their will or doing things by coercion that are against their will, things like that, yes, that is a problem. If they're afraid to leave for their safety and well-being, yes, 100% that's a problem. I haven't seen it. Like, anyone can label anything, you know? You can say it's whatever you want. You could say that, our political party's a cult. I don't know, anything. Anyone can say anything. Show me why you're saying this. Give me something concrete, because those are big statements to make. That's her family, it's her business, it's her faith. And if it's true, yeah, that's horrible. But just to label it doesn't hold water for me. Everybody's so busy labeling. Tell me why you're saying it, and then we have a conversation.
I would agree with all that. People have a label for everything. So like when you read that, or like when Cam is there in that scene, that right, like that doesn't change your like opinion of Mary, like or anything like that.
No, I mean, I'm definitely shaken up by it. You can see that. I'm definitely rattled and upset. And of course, I'm sitting there like, what is this guy talking about? Like, why is he saying these things? And so it's very upsetting to me. But he doesn't say anything. It's very cryptic. Just saying, I know her really well and be careful is just like confusing.
It's like passive aggressive almost, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's just confusing. And I'm not saying that he had good or bad intent. I can't speak to that. I have no idea, you know, why this conversation evolved the way that it did. And maybe in some way I almost feel like he was cryptic, because I think he kind of got in over his head, and didn't know what to say. I guess we'll see what happens, down the road, and if he has more to say, or if he feels that he was trying to kind of backpedal and didn't really want to go there. I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out. I have no idea.
What do you think of the whole Erica Jane thing as you've watched this season with the rest of us?
It's a very different circumstance, particularly because it all boils down to whether Erica had knowledge or not. And I have no clue. I certainly think it is very possible she did not. I can understand that definitely being the case, but I don't live in her house. I don't know. Um, if she did, that's horrible. But I think it's very possible she did not. I can't say she didn't because I don't know. But I can get my head around her not knowing anything. Absolutely, like I could. She married a man who was much older than her. He was immensely successful before they ever met. It could make sense to me that she was not counting any pennies. It sounds like he was kind of controlling too, so she probably didn't have access to a lot of information. So it could easily make sense to me that she didn't have any knowledge.
When you watch this scene that you weren't there, when this whole thing, I mean, we heard it around the world, like, were you as drawn into this particular scene as we were, like as the viewer? Because you weren't there. You were kind of watching it as a viewer.
Yeah, of course, because I was not there, and and I'm sort of like, wait, what? And here's the thing too, is when things are going on and you're not there, you always hear everybody's side of the story of what unfolds, and it's always just a little bit different. Everybody sort of just tells their side. That's human nature. That's what we do. And so you're sort of listening to things unfold. And so that's what's really fun about this, is you actually do get to see these moments that you've heard about. You've heard, several people tell a slightly different version of the facts. Sometimes a wildly different version, but in this case, slightly. Um, and you get to see it unfold and take your own point of view on it.
What was it like? Because like this is another situation like Erica's, that it was unfolding in real time as you were filming. Like, what was that like? I mean, again, second season, it's not necessarily what you expect.
No. It's very intense to have something like that, because, you know, usually when these big life issues come up like this with people, you kind of have a minute to digest it and kind of process your feelings on it. And you're seeing that, you know what I'm saying? You guys are seeing that. And that's usually a very private moment. So, I think everybody has to kind of go through their own process, and because we are all so different, we all do it differently.